Hello, this is Kari Fell. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to start a new project. My son will be sitting in the background doing his homework, right? The whole time. So try to ignore him as I will try. Today's project is for the store, the Bobbin Tree, and I've been asked to make a project to see how it works out for a possible kit. So I am using the store samplet loom. It's a little bigger than what I'm used to. It's a 16-inch samplet. It comes in a nice kit. The Bobbin Tree can set you up if this is of interest to you. I'll put the link in the description below. And I'm going to be using a unique sock yarn. So this is a self-striping yarn that will create a pattern. The way I warp it will determine the order of the colors of the threads. We won't know what it looks like until I put it on the loom. Once I've done that, I will decide what the best color will be for the weft. So this is the warp, and the weft will be one of these colors. And it'll be pretty evident, I think, once the warp is on the loom, which one of these will look best. A little tip for people who have this type of looms. This is an Ashford samplet, and the way it clamps to the table is with one of these contraptions here. And I find that this piece here that goes through the hole has got nothing to keep the loom from pulling off of it. So I just use my trusty painter's tape, which I always have on hand, and I just kind of put a little bit of a mess there on the metal part that sticks through, and then I find that the loom can't slide off this metal thing while I'm warping it or winding on. So that comes off easily with no residue at the end. Okay, the way this yarn works is we have supposedly two identical balls, and they are going to be put on the loom with starting from the inside out. So because they're two identical balls, if I wind them from the inside out, we will have a symmetrical, balanced warp where the stripes happen in the same place on both sides down the center of the scarf. The balls seem to be symmetrical. I first thought I would go from the outside of the ball because they seem to unroll easier that way, and I didn't want to end up with a tangle coming from the center. But what I found was that they were not the same at the start, with one ball being brown and one ball being a dark something. So rather than try to figure that out, I pulled out the centers, and I found that the centers seem to be colored the same. So I'm going to start from the colors are changing at the same time. So I'm going to start from pulling from the center of the balls. And apparently these two cakes should unwind identically. Let's give it a try and see. I start the warping process by putting the ball of yarn in a bowl on the floor. The yarn then comes up and over the back beam and onto the rear tie-up rod. And then it's a matter of using the sleigh hook to pull that loop through. So I'm pulling the yarn through every slot. I'll go back and thread the holes later. And I walk back and forth, and I'm looping it over a clamp here. I tend to use one of these carpenter clamps, instead of what's in the box. I find this just holds to the table better. So I'm starting from the inside and working out. Then the second ball will also start from the inside and work in the opposite direction. And I'm just going to keep on going until the ball runs out. Some point between the middle and the edge, the ball will run out, and then it should run out in the same place on the other side. We'll see. Both balls have been threaded through the heddle, and it looks pretty symmetrical too. Then I wound it all onto the back beam. Okay, everything's wound onto the back beam, and now I take the threads, which are doubled up in the slots. So we have 2 threads in each slot here, and I'm going to be moving one of those of each pair into the hole. Push it through, grab it from behind, and pull it through the hole. What I'm doing is I'm taking the 2 and I'm kind of watching how they come over the back beam, and I'm taking the one to the right and moving it over into the hole on the right. That way I shouldn't have crossed threads behind the heddle. So I was given 4 different balls of yarn to try against the warp to see which one looks best. I decided against the pink. I found it to be a little bit too light, and it would just sort of lighten up everything. And we want to highlight this beautiful color of warp. So I discarded that one first, leaving me with these. I suspected the purple and the sort of almost a denim blue might be my first choices, but I put the bright blue up against the warp. And as I suspected, it was so bright that it sort of made the other colors look a little boring. It really helped pick up the blue, but it didn't necessarily set the other colors off, because it had tones of green in it, and I found that the warp didn't really pick that color up anywhere. So that was the second color to discard. So the next color was the blue, sort of a denim blue. Look quite good next to the colors. Not so much these lighter ones here, but look good in the center section and the outer section. So that's an option. And then the last one was a purple. Now the purple is warm, so it looked good against this part here. And definitely on the outer section as well. It really helped the rust color pop. So I think a warm color goes best with this warp. can see it there, a warm color as opposed to a cool one. So that means the purple rather than the blue if we're going to go for warm. Either one would work, but I had to choose one, so I chose purple. So this is my my spreader warp, and then we've our weft, and then I have the purple starting off here as the weft. I think that's going to work really well. I'm nearing the end. The tie-on bar is now visible over the back beam, and my packing material has dropped away. And I'm probably going to stop soon. One of the reasons being that I'm not getting a good shed. So the way the yarn is coming off the back beam, we have some crossing of threads, and so when I put my shuttle through, it's not quite as clear on the down heddle anyways. So I'm thinking we probably don't need to make this too much longer, and then we have lots of yarn to work with for the fringe. So this will be my final pick. So let's see what this is. This is 10 inches from the back beam. So from the final fell line to the back beam, we've got 10 inches here. And that seems to me to be a good place to stop. So I'll leave the heddle in neutral and do the hem stitching. So now that it's neatly hem stitched, I can release some tension and I can cut it off the loom. So I can cut at any point up here. And it's good to have it the tension off so nothing goes sproing when you cut it. And it's very satisfying to weave on a rigid heddle loom because of the small amount of waste that's left at the end of it all. Most of this here will be incorporated into the fringe. And this is also a very satisfying part of weaving. It's when you take the break off and let it go. Unwind. So I'm going to untie these knots so that if I cut them, then I have a very short fringe. So I'm going to untie them so that I can use some of this in the fringe and the twisting. So here is the finished scarf. It has a nice symmetrical color pattern with the center blue area and then either side repeating the same way. The scarf has a beautiful drape, a very nice hand, soft, warm. Looks like it will be very cozy. It's a nice wide scarf. So yes, I think taking a self-striping yarn and having it set a little closer than you might normally have, and with a neutral weft, makes a gorgeous piece of weaving. So contact the Bobbin Tree if you'd like a kit to make something similar for yourself. The link is in the description below, and consider liking and subscribing to my channel, and check out my Patreon if you'd like to be a part of this exciting weaving journey of mine. Thank you for visiting my studio.